everybody. Welcome back to Tech Sheck, a special episode, one that brings me a lot of joy and a little bit of sadness. It's our last episode of our last season, and we're closing the show. Well, we thought, let's make it a little different. Let's bring some folks on who've done some different things in the startup world. And last but not least, the person who helped me incept this whole idea. So, as we always do, and for the final time on Tech Sheck, let's jump right in. I'd like to introduce my first guest. You may remember her. She's quite prolific, Halima from Oraan. Please introduce yourself.
I am Halima. I am the founder of Oraan. Oraan is a digital savings platform. We're designing around women and we're creating financial mobility for them in Pakistan.
Thanks for being on, Halima. It was great having you the first time, and thanks for helping us close this out.
Excited to be here again.
That's awesome. And of course, Abrar from Tazah Technologies. Abrar, a quick refresher for our audience.
Yeah. Hey, Farooq. Thank you for having us. My name is Abrar. I'm the co-founder of Tazah Technologies. Tazah is building an operating system for the agriculture value chain of Pakistan, which includes multiple products, including Tazah Tez, which is a software as a service solution for the agri manufacturers, and Tazah Global, which is a platform built for producers in Pakistan who want to export outside Pakistan, and now evolving into something that can be used by anybody anywhere in the world who's in the food trade business. So again, excited to be here. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for jumping on with us, Abrar. Really appreciate that. Sending Tech Sheck off with a bang. And last but not least, the man who helped inspire the start of Tech Sheck and gave me every now and then a little momentum to keep this thing going, Yousuf Siddiqui. Yousuf, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes. So, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Great to be here and great to be part of this milestone that Farooq has achieved. Farooq doesn't need a lot of encouragement or any spark. He's just a charged guy in general. So, Tech Sheck started off with a bunch of middle-aged guys who were bored in COVID and said, "Kuch karte hain yaar." And we started, Farooq really started the Tech Sheck. We were just brainstorming one afternoon, and he just ran with it. And on a more serious note, we talked about, hey, there's so much amazing talent in Pakistan, such great ideas. How do we build a bridge between that talent and the exciting things that are going on in the United States? Since we're in California, so close to Silicon Valley and all the startup action. How do we make that happen? And, I see Farooq as a bridge builder, and that's exactly what he did.
Thanks, Yousuf. And, it was interesting, those COVID conversations, what it inspired. And I'd say the best learning along this journey is I got to meet a lot of wonderful people like the folks we have on today. So without further ado, we wanted to make sure that we let the audience know, you know what? A lot of people have great ideas. Some are timid about them, some aren't. And we wanted some learnings to be shared today. So I'm going to pass it back to Halima. Halima, give us a little overview. What's been really good, what's been not so good about your entire process. Share a little bit about your journey with us.
Oh boy. Startups or this journey it's been a roller coaster ride. And there's so much good, but there's also so much reflection and learning. If there's one thing that I wish I had realized very early on, would have been the importance of people and getting the right team and making sure that people and alignment is always there. I think that we often forget about the importance of people when you're thinking about building and when you're thinking about, especially like in the early days, because there is such great energy, but as things move along and as the ride gets tougher and tougher, that's when you start realizing how important people are, whether it is your team, your investors, your advisors, everybody collectively. So yes, that's been one of my biggest learnings. Knowing how to manage people, knowing how to deal with people, knowing how to learn from people, making sure there's alignment across board, and that creates the journey so much more special, right? When you talk about people, that people from a customer perspective as well. So knowing and understanding and constantly listening to what your customer is saying is very, very important. So two very key learnings of the journey so far, making sure that you have the right people on the team. And when I talk about team, I'm talking about both team on the execution level and team on the cap table, team on the advisory level as well. And then just being constantly in touch with what the reality is for the customer, because that's really what you're building for.
Oh, that's great. So I guess that leads me to one more question, which I'd like to, would you do this all over again?
100%. This is my
Awesome.
life. So,
Great.
and there are days when you're just like, why did I choose this life? And then there are days like, this is who you are. You will always keep on doing this. And I think that's I'm sure Abrar can vouch for this as well. That's what wakes us up every morning, and we're just like, let's go. Because this journey, if you do not have this kind of a passion, if you do not have this kind of a personality type, I strongly believe it's a certain personality type. If you don't have that, it's a very rough journey. And the glory of startup is what's largely talked about. The failures, the hardships are not necessarily talked about, right? And I'm so glad for this platform, because the first time I came on, we talked about these kinds of things as well, right? So yeah, 100% we'll do it again.
No, that's great. And I guess for you, Halima, the last question that I'd like to highlight a little bit is, and we talked a little bit about this offline, but there's a lot of challenges right now in Pakistan. And how is that affecting your momentum?
I think it actually has been quite positive in terms of just focused on building and figuring out what works, what doesn't work, rather than this phase that all of us got into, where there was so much noise, and might have changed our focus or distracted us to focus on things that might not necessarily be the most important from a building a business perspective. Right. So I think while it's challenging, there's hyperinflation, the macros are not looking that great, but the reality is that we're building for an audience who needs these kinds of solutions. And it's a great time to just put your head down and focus inwards and keep building.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Halima. And again, to the audience, I hope you can take some learning lessons, but we're moving along. Abrar, your turn.
Yeah, so I think I'm just going to build on what Halima said. I think as a founder, like she said, it's a lifestyle. You've got to be a bit unhinged, like I say, to do what we do, or do a lot of early stage startup founders do, or even late stage founders do. You got to be a bit unhinged. You got to be a bit crazy, to sort of attempt the kind of things we do. These are companies that, these are problems the kind of problems we're solving, but not solved. And there is a reason why these problems have remained unsolved for a very long period of time. And the fact that there's a group of people, or there's all these people who are trying to solve them, trying to attempt the impossible, there is definitely something, wrong over here for us to do this. But I think that's what keeps this exciting, because most of the people that you see in these startups come from, they've seen the traditional side, or they've seen, what's happening on the other side, the dark side, as we call it. and they were not happy there. They were not satisfied with the kind of impact they were making. I was making when I was on the corporate side of things, and I wanted to do something more impactful, more meaningful with my life. Eventually ended up doing what we do here. In terms of learnings, I think one key learning, and maybe Halima also touched upon it, was understanding failure, being comfortable with failure, uh, being very iterative about what you do, because these are difficult problems to solve. For example, agricultural value chain, there's a reason why it's so complex and has been working in a certain manner for decades, say even centuries, right? And there's a reason why, the space that Oraan is in is, there's a reason why people have been doing it, a few things in a certain way. And what we do is, nobody has a playbook here to solve these problems, right? And you can apply your mind and try to sort of, build a path, but generally, more often than not, that path, there's going to be failure, right? And it is going to be an iterative process. And if you talk about glory, I mean, there's definitely glory from the outside, but inside there's, gut-wrenching failures that you come across every day. You build something with your, with a lot of toil, and and we've done this quite a few times. And you 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, you find out that this is not going to work. So having that humility also to understand and not marry yourself to certain solutions that you build, and continuing to iterate, continuing to refine your focus, your product, your value proposition. I think it is hard, but I think this is what will eventually make what we do at least successful. But at the same time, it takes some special kind of courage to eventually go through these processes again and again, and still keep standing. It certain days becomes really hard, but she talked about importance of people. I think it's super important to have a close support system with you, within investors, your colleagues, people that you trust, your friends, because it has happened with us quite a few times where we doing things in a certain way, they're not working out. You have this conversation with your friends, and they sort of like are able to provide you perspective that you, for example, yourself can't have, because you're so on the ground, you're so zoomed into these problems that you're solving, and then they come in, they tell you that hey, zoom out. You on the ground floor, it looks exactly how you say it is, but on the 10th floor, on the top floor, it's a very different kind of situation, and you got to have that perspective and change your direction, or change your approach and all that. So having a support system, friends, investors, super important. Very fortunate to have that group with us, which has helped us survive through some very difficult times. And yeah, so I traded processes, having the right support system with you, and being okay with failure. I think that these are some of the key learnings that I would also take away.
Awesome. Well, and I'm going to throw it to you too. Would you do it again?
Yes, I think yes, I am crazy enough to do it again. Yes.
The pause scared me a little bit, but I guess you really had to take a breath before you pushed that out.
Yeah, I wanted to think about it again. I wanted to consider all my options before I committed again.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Abrar, Halima, so far. And last but not least, so Yousuf, with you, it's a little bit of a different twist. I know, because you've been happily coaching me and helping me along this journey, but what have you learned from the impact of what we're doing? I know, you kind of sat back, we ideated, and now we executed. What doors does this open for you, and what are your thoughts around that?
For me, I'm more of what I admire. Let me say what I admire about Halima and Abrar is, they're on the ground, execution oriented, getting things done, making something out of nothing. Me, I'm more of an idea person, and I'd love to bring together people who get things done, who create realities that weren't there before. And so what I learned through all this, and watching you go 100 miles an hour, Farouk, much faster than my pace, what I saw was this idea of which is a common theme amongst all three of you. And also, interestingly enough, it's a theme in Pakistan too, since its inception. It's really about resilience. Let's just keep going, make something out of nothing. And, that's what I admire from my vantage point, is how all three of you have been able to do that. And that's the key ingredient. As opposed to, I'll draw a contrast, a lot of people live their lives in maintenance mode. They have what they have and they're like, all right, I'm comfortable where I am, and don't need to come out of my comfort zone. And all three of you are completely the opposite of that. So that's what I've learned. And, it's made me come out of my comfort zone. There are a few different things that I'm thinking about. One is definitely around this idea of creative people in Pakistani Americans who have creative background, whether you're an artist or you're a poet or you're a filmmaker. So how do we get this generation of creative people who are really storytellers? How do we get them together and help them support each other? So that's an idea that's going through my mind, is how do we really get Pakistani storytellers, give them a platform and a venue where they can support each other. So that's an idea that's percolating in my head. I just need to get another Farouk who kind of run with it. So more to come on that.
That's great. No, and I know you're making some murmurings, and I think you might have found your partner in crime here in Houston. So best of luck with that. Anyways, well, and as you guys know, we're not going to belabor things. The next question back to Halima. So Halima, in all honesty, I spent probably the last 3 years and have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this in terms of time and effort and thinking. Have you seen any positive impact of Tech Sheck? And I want honesty here, right? And what is it that worked, and what is it you think didn't work?
I think this was one of the only platforms that didn't just talk. It was very conversational. So because it was conversational, it brought in a lot of honesty from different founders. And if you ever do that analysis, you will find similar kinds of stories. So as a founder, when you would watch these episodes, you would realize that you're not the only one. So it might not have a direct impact but as a founder, I would be sitting and I was like, okay, I'm not the only one. It's a similar kind of a story. And the reality, because the ecosystem is so small, these kinds of platforms are important to connect people as well, to be able to come together and solve bigger problems together as well, right? I do remember there was few episodes that talked deeply about talent and the problems that Pakistani startups are having around talent, like a couple of years ago. So like that those stories, those tips and tricks from different founders helped each other figure out, okay, this is not a problem that's unique to you. So from that perspective, I think it was very, very beneficial.
Excellent. Anything you think we could have done differently?
No, I think I don't think you should be shutting it down.
Well, that's a longer story, which we'll talk about in our last section. So, it's a positive. So it'll be a good story. Abrar, you're on deck.
Yeah, man. I think if I remember correctly, maybe you wouldn't remember it, but you reached out to me and spoke to me before we were building in dark mode at that point in time, and somehow you found out and you said that you guys want to talk about it. We had raised and we hadn't really like announced, and I think that was a bit of a surprise for me. It was the first platform we've spoken to about Tazah, right? And we've spoken to a few people afterwards, but I found it interesting that you were the first you platformed us, right? You provided us an opportunity to, voice and tell the story of Tazah, right? That's where we got started. So this is Tech Sheck is a special holds a special place for me. I think too, you've always been after that. You've always been touching. In fact, at one point in time, we were also raising, and you provided me some advice and consulting there. Now with Mensa, I think I don't know if I should. Am I supposed to talk about it? Or
You can, because we are going to talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think now you're taking it one step forward. I think it has been super important. The format also, which is very short, crisp, helps you sort of like there are other platforms which are longer. But if I just want to find out, what is, for example, Startup X doing, most likely you would have spoken to them. I would find, I just look up your YouTube channel. I'm going to find them, and I'm in a very short, crisp format. I'm going to find out what they do. That's a lot of education. That's a lot of convenience, right? So, and I just found out you're going to shut it down. So when you said this is our last episode, I thought you were being dramatic, but it seems like you are shutting it down. So why?
Yeah, and I'll definitely I'll segue that for the last part of our conversation. But I want to give one last question to you and then move it to Yousuf. And Abrar, that is, so what, if anything, could we have done differently here?
I can't think of, I was thinking, so this is a special kind of format, right? So there are other formats which are longer, or, the questions are more open-ended, but when I open Tech Sheck, I know what exactly what's going to happen. So this is question number 1, question number 2, and I can find specific answers. I don't have to, it doesn't really, drag conversation. So I can't think of anything right now.
Thanks. Last but not least, Mr. Inceptor, Yousuf.
Yeah. So done anything differently? Maybe an episode that, at the end of each season saying, hey, where are they now? And how many booms do we have? How many busts? And what did we learn from them? I think that would have been good. And getting people on who actually started up something and it didn't go well. And they decided to say, hey, I'm going to call it a day. But as Halima and Abrar suggested earlier, it's really in their DNA, because those people are going to start something. Most of them are going to find something else to keep themselves busy, right? So that journey, I think, is really important. We don't talk a lot about busts. We don't talk about failing. We don't talk about failing fast and the value in that and the learning in that. So something around that would have been great, and maybe that's something that you'll do in the future.
No, I appreciate that, Yousuf, and that's very useful and helpful. And that segues us into the burning question, which has come up multiple times: why are we shutting it down? So, Yousuf's a New York guy. Halima, you and Abrar might be a little younger, but this is something from our generation. And Jerry Seinfeld was a very popular comedian here in the US. And if you remember him, and I remember it, and he said, you know what, I'm leaving with a bang. So I think we've spent the last 3 years, we've touched 140 episodes. I think I've covered 95% of the ecosystem, right? And so here's the premise, and Yousuf touched on this a little. So, we took Tech Sheck, we formed a niche. I think we found this niche, and Abrar reflected on it well. It's like, within this ecosystem, people could go and, hey, oh, okay, who is that? And what are they doing? And the problem we ran into is the sustainability factor of this. And then we hit the crash, right? So what's happening now? So the beauty of when things were hot was, how I found you, Abrar? I've become a LinkedIn sleuth. I don't rely on, the networks, and, and you guys were just good at operating in those social media environments. And I was good at dialing in, and I was able to find lots of people. And when I found Halima and Abrar, I found, the rest, right? So that helped me. There's been a real slowdown in terms of activity and raise and capability. So that was another impetus. The positive in all of this is where we concluded, and what we came to is, I wanted to start creating more impact, right? And impact in the sense that I'm very fortunate to have been surrounded by folks like you who really get the system dialed in, figured out how to raise money and execute. We're now working, and that's where we led us to the conclusion around Menasa. And one of my guests, Taha Anis, and both guests, Sayer Ali from the Boring Syndicate, when we had them on, they said, Farooq, this is great stuff, but there's a services industry that really impacts downstream employment. There's a huge need for dollar-based revenue right now. How can you help us? And that's how Menasa was born. And in all fairness, to be fair to the platform and what we do, I've always tried to be diligent about what I do, and I can't pay attention to both. So phase 2, and that's why I was in Pakistan last week, is getting now engaged and getting services companies in Pakistan, helping them get more dialed into the North American marketplace, and actually helping them actualize revenue out of this environment. So that's where we're headed to. The big motivation there, again, the big motivation behind Tech Sheck has always been, how do I help Pakistan sitting here, right? And I'm not going to solve the structural problems. I'm not going to solve the political problems, but every dollar raised and every dollar revenue that comes in impacts positively. So that's been the real impetus. And so I'm very much in the scene and will be around, but working with different companies, helping them actuate revenue.
Incredible.
Well, really, the learning and the journey of Tech Sheck really helped me come to these conclusions, and I think hopefully we're going to continue to build on that. The nice thing is, if I can recruit Yousuf to do Tech Sheck Part 2, maybe I'm going to make him put his money where his mouth is on some of those ideas.
Yeah, the operative word there was do. I don't know about the do, but I can talk about it. But hey, on a serious note, Farooq, I know this is natural progression. I can see how making an impact, you will make an impact with Menasa, and you'll execute the heck out of it. And I think it's going to be great. It's just the right thing at the right time, and I think it's a very decision. And I wish you all the best. And if there's anyone that I know in my network that can do something like that, it's you, because you build bridges and you make connections. So you're a connector, and I think you'll be very successful.
Thank you, Yousuf. Halima, Abrar, any final thoughts, parting comments?
Very, very excited to see what's to come in your next chapter, and sad to see this platform wrap up, but we'll see more of you in other ways. So good luck, and excited to follow your journey.
Thank you very much.
What she said. Exactly what she said.
That's great. Well, look, as you know, we always try to keep this tight in time, and guess what? 27 minutes. We're ahead of schedule.
Awesome.
We're in a great place. So first of all, I want my heartfelt thank you for all of your participation and help. I don't want to preclude any of the other 135 plus people who came and helped make this journey real. For those of you out there who are watching, again, our heartfelt thanks for your support and helping us build this with the one thought and notion in mind: may our country continue to flourish. And may your journeys continue to help you secure and bring a brighter financial future to more people in the country. Really, that's what the missions are.
You're here.
Thank you all very much. To our audience, thank you for supporting us through the years. Really appreciate that. We continue on our journey and look forward to staying in touch with you accordingly. If you have any ideas, please continue. Like, share, subscribe. There's still a lot of content that's very relevant. Help us propagate a positive Pakistan message and how to help now the services ecosystem and continue to help the tech startup ecosystem. And with that, I bid you all Allah Hafiz.